You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below. Be sure, smash that like button. Tigers and Aggies, Death Valley, 6 o'clock Saturday night. David Nuno, TexAgs.com. Good enough to join us for a couple of minutes, preview the game. David, thanks for the time, man. Belated happy Thanksgiving. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks so much for having me. I got to tell you, before I took the job here at TexAgs, Billy Lucci told me to pay attention to what you do, that you do the show the way it needs to be done. And I'm really impressed this past 8 months I've gotten to know you, and I just think you're great, and I really respect your hard work.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Tell Billy the check's in the mail. I appreciate all those kind words when he can send them. Hey, look, I was happy to do TexAgs Radio with you, and you all asked an interesting question. Is the LSU perspective on this game more interested because it's A&M? And I said in a normal year it would be, because people here have organically grown to really appreciate that rivalry. But this year, so much of it's on the coaching search. What about from the other side? How much of Saturday night is going to be influenced by the fact that it is Texas A&M LSU from the A&M perspective?
I think a couple of things are at play here. First off, this is a kind of a forced rivalry, if you will. There's an obvious rivalry because you're in the SEC West. You recruit a lot of the same players. So from that perspective, of course, and they've now met for Thanksgiving or the day after, or a couple of days after the last few years. But I think if A&M is able to win this one, win 2 of 3, and actually start making it into a rivalry, if you will, because LSU dominated the first part of it, I think it will go a long way. But, no matter what, I will tell you, the Longhorns are still the big rival. A lot of respect for what LSU's been able to do, no matter who the coach is there. But I think you've got to win a couple more in order to kind of force that from both perspectives. But absolutely, A&M wants this game to get to 9 wins, considering all the things that went wrong early on.
Yeah, so what is the general vibe around the program, considering the lofty expectations, a chance at 9 wins, and an outside shot at a New Year's 6? How has this season been viewed there in College Station?
It depends what chapter we're talking about, because the early chapters were all about this team being a team that should compete for a college football playoff berth. And that was kind of there was optimism towards that, but the reality was when you're starting a couple of freshmen on the offensive line and your quarterback is gone and some key defensive cogs are gone as well, that was going to be hard to do. But that was under the thinking of Haynes King. When he went down and Zach Calzada came in those first 3 games, the Colorado game, the Arkansas game, the Mississippi State game, where he really struggled to get the offense going and the offensive line struggled, we weren't even sure if this team would win 6-7 games. Almost like a reverse of what we were seeing at LSU. When they were able to start blocking, and obviously the big victory over Alabama, everything changed. It crash-landed a tad bit with the Ole Miss loss. But that team, as you've seen the last few weeks, when their defense is on point, their offense is going to win some games. It's a long way of telling you, I think if they can get to 10 wins this year, it'll be a very successful season considering the transition and the fact you have a backup quarterback who really struggled for strong or long stretches of this season. It'd be a successful season.
David Nuno, TexAgs.com, is with us. So you mentioned Haynes King and the switch to Zach Calzada after the injury. David, how were they able to get the offense going after being stuck in the mud there early with Calzada?
It is all about the offensive line, and you guys there, Baton Rouge, know that all too well. They had a couple of freshman studs starting on the offensive line that needed some game rest. Once they felt comfortable and they started going through it and knew what they had to do, go through the Colorado game on the road, start picking on some SEC opponents. Once they learned that part of the game, that offensive line started really clicking, which allowed Isaiah Spiller and Devon A-Chain to get going, because this offense is completely predicated. Jimbo says on the imbalance, it's really about the run. And what has happened over the last couple of weeks is the pass has to set up the run because they're loading the boxes. And we assume that'll happen with LSU as well. But it is really all about that offensive line gelling and putting some youngsters on the line to really grow.
Is there a weakness offensively still?
A couple weaknesses, sure. Zach Calzada he's either great or very average. And I love the kid because he's as tough as they come. And obviously it's one of the biggest victories in program history. And also the wide receivers have been a disappointment and dropped analysis, and guys have not developed the way I think we thought they would by this point. And there's been some injuries there. They were supposed to have Caleb Chapman to start the year. He missed a big chunk. They've had Hezekiah Jones as well, expected to start early on. He missed. Chase Lane has missed. So I'd say the wide receivers have certainly been a little disappointing, but there have been reasons for that.
David, if we're being honest with respect to this game, the only way LSU is going to have a chance is if they find a way to generate some kind of offense against that A&M defense. So when teams have been able to move the football against A&M, and that has been rare this year, what has worked against the Aggie defense?
Two things have worked, in my opinion. The big plays over the top, Traylon Burks really gassed them early on in that game against Arkansas where they got up to a 17-0 lead, and mobile quarterbacks. So obviously LSU, I think right there, struggling from an injury standpoint and obviously not a mobile quarterback. Those are two areas. But again, if the LSU defense can put A&M in some compromising positions offensively, the short side of the field would be able to help them quite a bit. But really, it's been the deep ball has really given them a hard time, and those quick. Ole Miss also really was able to gash them up with a run game, which was surprising.
Is it one of those things where when LSU obviously doesn't have a mobile quarterback, they almost never run the quarterback, but Ty Davis-Price has generated a little bit of momentum here in the last 6 weeks. Is it one of those situations where teams have been able to get a push against that really dominant interior at all, or has it been more misdirection runs?
A lot of misdirection runs, and honestly, a lot of first-half success to put the Aggies behind the eight ball. You go back to the Arkansas game, they were able to gash up the Aggies early on, but then A&M turned the game around and almost had a chance to win that one, even though they were down by 17 early on. Same thing in the Ole Miss game. Ole Miss was able to generate 405 yards of offense in the first half, only 109 in the second half, and a lot of that in the first half was all from big plays, running the ball, misdirection. So one of the things that A&M has done a great job this year, going all the way back to the Colorado game, is Mike Elko's defense makes strong adjustments at the half. So, I'm giving you a couple of answers there, but basically get on them early because then it's hard for them to come back.
Well, it's interesting, David, just listening to you spell it all out. LSU doesn't have a mobile quarterback. They don't hit big plays over the top, and they don't start fast. It's just really hard to imagine how this goes LSU's way. Tigers are a 6.5-point home dog in this ball game. If it is close and comes down to a kick, that's an advantage where LSU typically has because Cade York is arguably the best kicker in college football. What about the Aggies? How are they in special teams?
Small's been really good. He's been really excellent for them. He obviously had a awkward-looking game winner against Alabama, but it went in. He's been strong. Anaya Smith obviously can break off a play at any point back there, and also Devon Achane. Both of those guys have had breakaway touchdowns. So special teams perspective, look, both teams really need help offensively, and A&M gets it three different ways. You get it from your defense creating turnovers, you get it from the kick return and the punt return, and also set small kicking. So special teams is a huge part of how they beat teams, especially when the offense is struggling.
David Nuno, TexAgs.com. Before you go, of course, A&M's trying to win in Baton Rouge for the first time since '94. First time, obviously, since A&M has been in the conference. Does that matter? I mean, how big of a deal for the A&M people would that be if the Aggies get that elusive win in Baton Rouge?
It'd be huge, and I'll tell you why. Because this year, with some transition and some injuries, if you can sell recruits and they look like they're going to have a top 3, top 4 class, you sell recruits that you beat Alabama, you beat LSU for the first time on the road, and you beat Auburn for the first time at home. I think it tells you it was a successful year, and this is a program on the rise during a transitional year with their backup quarterback.
It is the Tigers and the Aggies, Saturday night, 7 o'clock. David Nuno will be in the house there at Tiger Stadium, and we appreciate a couple of minutes. Make sure you check out TexAgs.com. You need Aggie info. That's the place that everyone goes, TexAgs.com. Of course, TexAgs Radio as well. David, we appreciate a couple of minutes, man. Belated happy Thanksgiving. Safe travels, okay?
Thank you, my friend. I'll see you soon.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.